Welcome to the CareerJitsu podcast, where we connect the art of Jiu-Jitsu with your career. Our mission is to empower and inspire you with engaging conversations and valuable insights from people just like you who benefit from the shared relationship between your workplace and the art of Jiu-Jitsu. Welcome to the CareerJitsu podcast. Frank and I are so excited today to have an opportunity to give our guests some valuable knowledge from a gentleman who is very unique. He is an entrepreneur. He's created an app called Grapple app, which is pretty cool. It's a mobile jiu-jitsu app. So he will talk about what that mobile jiu-jitsu app is, and it's also a revenue sharing platform. So he's going to talk about that. So professionally, that's what Mike is up to these days. But he also, in BJJ, he is a black belt in BJJ. So he's definitely going to be able to share his knowledge on the mats with what he's doing with Grapple app and what it's like being an entrepreneur, right? Because entrepreneurship and jiu-jitsu have a lot of parallels, right? And most significantly about Mike is that he was in the Marine Corps for 20 years. So he trained jiu-jitsu throughout being in the Marine Corps. So he's trained in a lot of different places, which is kind of what spawned his creativity for the mobile jiu-jitsu app. And so he reached the rank of major. So he was in the Marine Corps for 20 years. So he got all the way to the rank of major, which is a major accomplishment, right? And he not only was he in the Marine Corps for 20 years, but he was awarded a Purple Heart. So anybody who knows military things, they know that the Purple Heart is an award for bravery, and we appreciate all of your service for that, Mike. So welcome to the CareerJitsu podcast, Mike.
I appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me. As we were saying earlier, perfect time, ready to go out tonight. This is a perfect primer. So I love talking about jiu-jitsu and business.
We're going to launch you right into an awesome weekend. And Michael, I just want to say, thank you so much for your service to our country. These are the real heroes. These are the heroes that allow everybody else to do what they do. Jason, you have your own gym. You're allowed to do that because there's somebody defending our country. I'm a teacher. I'm allowed to do that because people are putting their lives on the line for us. And so we really appreciate the service that you have given to our country. So thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
So now I'm really excited to hear about your journey into the Marines.
All right.
What got you into the Marines? What was it like when you joined? Was it as difficult as everybody says it was? You were obviously in battle. I want to hear about some of that. What's it like being in battle?
Sure.
How and then after that or during that, we could talk a little bit about your jiu-jitsu progression. But let's start with the Marines. How did that all start for you?
When I went to college at UC Davis in 1997, my father, he was a ranger in Vietnam. So I wanted to consider going into the Army. And he was a Silver Star recipient, war hero, all that. So I grew up looking at all of his medals on the wall, kind of like I have now, odd how that works out. And I had just been, I had loved everything about soldierly virtue as a child. And then when I went to college, I played rugby, and they happened to have Army ROTC. So I thought, why not give that a shot? It was just, when you're a freshman rugby player and you're in a rugby frat, you're joining a rugby frat, right? And you happen to be a fairly outgoing dude. You're getting up at 5 a.m. 5 days a week in college, and your freshman year is kind of tough. So, because I had rugby on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 in the morning, and then I had the Army ROTC Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 in the morning. So, and of course it's Tuesday night, you got to get blackout drunk. So, so it's like, what else is there to do, right? So maybe not quite to that extreme, but studying was the last thing on my mind, right? I did end up doing fairly poorly my freshman year. I was actually kicked out of UC Davis, and then I worked like the dickens over the summer to get back in, which is kind of the hallmark of my life, is just, tanking my life and then doing a phenomenal job of going right back up. The thing is now I'm done. I'm done with the stupid mistakes. I'm 47. I'm longer in the tooth, and I have more wisdom, right? More to learn, but I just realized that I didn't want to go into the Army because the Marines just seemed a little bit more towards my personality. The Army is huge. Marine Corps is 1/3 their size. And they were offering an officer candidate school path to commissioning as an officer that only required you to spend 6 weeks of your summer, 2 months or 2 years in a row before going to college, as opposed to taking classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday all throughout the school year. So it freed up all that time. So I kind of went laterally, moved over to the Marine Corps, joined their program for officers. And cool thing is I was able to still stay in the Army ROTC program because they have military science, and I could just, it was the easiest. I graduated with a 2.6, and if it weren't for the freaking 4 years of A's that I got in military science, which is like the easiest thing in the world to do, I wouldn't have gotten that commission as an officer. I did get a 4.0 at University of Oklahoma for my master's degree in organizational leadership, though. So I made up for that. And geez, let's see, that really was the only things required for me to go into the Marine Corps, just those 2 summer times. It was very tough. You're in the woods of Quantico, and it's not quite like an enlisted boot camp in Paris Island or San Diego. You still have drill instructors, but they're there to shape you into being an officer, which is very different from being an enlisted Marine. And so they give you a little bit more leeway to screw up, because integrity is kind of like the main thing. It's like, can we trust this dude? So, if you can't run the fastest, they'll get you there. If you can't do the most pull-ups, they'll get you there. But if you have a character defect that is constitutional, you got to go. So like if it's part of your nature, right, your character, then they use that to kind of weed you out. And cool thing is most Marine officers turn out to be pretty awesome guys. Of course, like any organization, you get, your turd burglars, but we've got plenty of them in jiu-jitsu, that's for sure. Thank God for the internet. They can out those dudes left and right now. So you got to walk a straight line now. That's kind of the way it is, And if you don't, you're going to pay the piper. And then I got my commission in 2003, and that was me getting my right hand sworn in, got my first salute, became a second lieutenant, and went off to war. That was basically I went straight from infantry officer course to a battalion called 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. Get some. It's the most historically, that unit is historically like the most valorous. We have a ton of huge battles, Bellawood, you name it. And so we were in the Battle of Fallujah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask you a question. So when you finished your training and immediately got sent, were you like, oh, damn, or were you like, let's go?
I literally had a sign on because we lived in like a barracks kind of at the time, or like dorms, and I put a piece of paper, because we all were finding out of the units that we were going to, and the next day, and I just wrote Iraq or bust, and I put it on my door. And I think one of the instructors saw that and was like, all right, give them 3-5. They're leaving in 6 months, So I immediately.
So you wanted it. You're like, I'm here and I want to use my skills that I've been trained for.
That's what Marines join the Marine Corps for. They're war fighters. They're killers. If you want something destroyed, that's the organization to do it. If you want some peacekeeping missions and stuff like that, call on the other organizations. But if you want a bunch of rabid pit bulls that are very hungry, give them the Marine Corps.
Wow. Okay. So right after that, yeah, that's gonna definitely be
that's very well
clip.
said, Michael.
Yeah.
That's a viral comment right there.
Yeah. But I'm just gonna let you know I'm not gonna be rolling with you anytime soon.
Who's rolling the world? I don't like.
No, I'm sure. I know. I'm just joking. So you finish your training and then bam, you're in a war scene. Tell us about it. What is it like? Was it like after you? I guess one question I want you to keep in mind as you tell me about this transition into the real battlefield. Did the hunger and desire to be there wear off? Was it like, oh my gosh, I didn't think it was going to be this? Or was it like, okay, this is what I do? So go ahead, tell us about your journey now.
Thank you, sir. It was, okay, this is what I do. And it was very much because, in your job description as a Marine infantryman is to be miserable. So as long as you're miserable,
you're doing a good job.
Their headquarters is happy. If you're doing well, it's like, absolutely not, right? So for me, the hunger stayed because there's a mass exodus of captains and sergeants around 2006 with a ton of combat knowledge. They left the Corps because There was, Fallujah, Ramadi, all sorts of other huge battles, and it was tough. You had a lot of dudes carrying a lot of baggage. So they left the Corps. I saw that happening, and I realized no one is going to be here to teach the next generation because there's things that we learned, right? So, I mean, I went from being a white belt to probably, damn near after the Battle of Fallujah, because that's where we went. So I joined 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines after infantry officer course, and then we had orders to Fallujah. At the time, they call it the first battle with didn't quite do well enough. They got a little bit in the city, but there were some political things that happened, so pulled everybody out. But then the second time we went in, I mean, destroyed the city. It was a lot. It was a lot. Imagine a giant city and you're looking at and it's burning, right? And Fallujah is called the city of mosques because there's an entire city underneath it with mosques that it's like a whole city. And so I think it's like one of the most mosques in the entire world. So that was one of the reasons that we had so much fighting for several months, is because these guys, these foreign fighters, would come into the city before we went, and they would hide in the sewers. And there was like it was kind of like, think of Paris in the 1780s or something like that, right? Like a whole underground world. So I personally did not get in and go down there. No, you didn't want to do that. We just, we killed everybody. So there was no one left. And I imagine there's probably some people down there. However, their purpose in life was not to live down there. Their purpose was to come fight us. So that's why it's estimated about 5,000 foreign fighters died in the city of Fallujah, because they knew we were coming. We had set up a giant cordon around the entire city. We dropped leaflets for 2 days that said, "Leave the city now. We're coming in guns hot in 5 days, 4 days, 3 days." So we were constantly, I was telling my wife this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So whoever was there, they wanted to fight. Whoever
Correct.
was there wanted to fight you.
And so Al Zarqawi, who was still alive at the time, he was bringing fighters into the city. So it was very much a staged battle. It was 100% like 2,000 years ago. The horses, the 2 leaders, they decide, and then they get their forces ready and all that stuff. And that's why this was so significant, because they were bringing in so many foreign fighters from Syria and so many other countries, lived in the sewers for 2 months. And I was just telling my friend this morning. You're talking about it randomly because I was mentioning this podcast. And when we killed these guys, they were about as white. Their faces were like this. It was kind of like, you would think of like what a sewer rat looked like. They looked like that. And they also were heavily dependent on drugs, like a lot of nerve deadening agents, because when they came out to shoot us, they would be jacked up on lidocaine and a bunch of other stuff. And that's why we would shoot them like 10 times in the body and they wouldn't fall down. And we're like, what the heck? So we use this process, or it's basically called non-standard response. And you just dump 28 rounds into their chest and then 2 right into their head. So, I mean, technically you're not going to put 28 rounds before the 2, but the idea is that 15 rounds aren't going to kill this person. You have to actually turn the switch off. And so that was why it was so important to get a headshot in close quarters battle.
Wow. So tell us how in this process you earned a Purple Heart.
I'm happy to. It was December 9th of 2004. We were headed north, clearing north in, I think it was the officers district of Fallujah. There was a 4-way corner. We went up a little bit, came to a stop sign, and there was a house that had a courtyard, and it was attached to a giant strip, a giant block, and we were clearing every house. And every house that we went into, I'd say 100 of them were empty, but one of them usually wasn't. So we were getting into fights probably once every 100 houses. And these are very bloody, close fights where you're like, the way that I got my Purple Heart was I was calling in a position rep, a pause rep outside of this one house that we were about to make a 2-pronged entry on, one over the courtyard and then one through the actual gate on the side. And I remember I'm calling in the pause rep to my company commander, or to the actual command post. I see 2 of my Marines in front of me, and then the other two of this fire team. They make entry into the courtyard, and I mean, they're charging, right? And I see, like, all of a sudden, like, right over my head it was a grenade, and it was this Chinese or Russian or something, pineapple grenade. And I remember when I saw it go over my head, it was like my brain went fink, 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 fink. And I was like, it was like I remembered this thing for my entire life and thinking it's gonna you're cooked, bro. And it kept going, and I was like, thank goodness. And then it hits a telephone pole and bounces right back in between me and my radio operator. And I'm like, shit. So we both turn, like, I turn to him and he turns to me, and we both go to tackle each other. And thank God it bounced far enough in between us that when it not hit us, the shrapnel the blast was so close, but the shrapnel wasn't able to get up high. It launched us. I mean, I was probably like 10 feet, I think. And I'd like to say that I did like a really cool forward shoulder roll in the street and got up and was like, combat. But I'm absolutely positive I scorpioned like this in the middle of the street, and it was terrible. Ended up getting up, and my right leg was hit with some shrapnel. It wasn't terrible. And the reason I want to say that is because there were men next to me that they didn't make it. So I usually don't focus too much on my injuries, because the dudes next to me, they did not do well. What happened is there was a weapon, or a few weapons inside this house, and you can't even see them with Overwatch from across the street, because usually we would try and scope out a house. Only thing is, you're clearing a city, right? They're all connected to each other. And essentially that you can usually see a silhouette, but you couldn't in this house. And when the guys made entry, one of our heroes, he was shot and he was killed. His name was Lance Corporal Christopher Adelsberger. He was a great man, and I love him dearly to this day. I went and spoke at the 250th Marine Corps birthday ball in Rancho Rio in New Mexico as the guest of honor, because that's where his family lives. And there's a chapter of the VFW out there named after him. So really, really happy to be able to do that. And American Legion. And so any organization that's looking for that stuff, I do all my best to go and share their stories. He passed. Luke and Deem were shot up really bad. Sergeant Copsetta, he took a large piece of shrapnel to his face. And what happened is when I got launched and I stood up, I immediately kind of jumped into this corner to get cover. And I basically got launched into another courtyard. And so I remember getting and looking around really quickly and thinking, okay, Michael, you are completely separated from your entire unit and you're in the enemy's courtyard. You're probably not going to make it out of this, but just take out as many of these as you possibly can. And that was the only thought that went through my mind. Was just get your killing on. And I was an officer, right? So I wasn't up front with all the dudes. Most of the time I was pretty close, right? A lot of times I was in the house with them, but that wasn't necessarily my job. I needed to be there and leading. So clear this little courtyard by myself, and I'm like, shit. And I look around the corner and I see Corporal Deem and Lance Corporal Luke, and they're scurrying around this corner from a iron gate, and they're totally red. They're that color. Their uniforms are just drenched because they had been completely chewed up. And I remember looking at them. And do you remember Saving Private Ryan with Tom Hanks at the very beginning when he gets knocked off of the U-boat and he's in the water and he's suffered a big concussion and he's sitting next to the Dragons the tetrahedron, and he's watching the battle, and he sees that guy with no arm walking around, and then he picks up his own arm. But what it was it was all hyper. There was a conical sphere where everything in there was as crystal clear as the best HD TV you ever seen in your entire life. And it was also very sped up at a 1.6 or a 1.7. And outside of that was all these squiggly lines, and it was just all squiggles. And so it's just this freaking, and then all of a sudden my sergeant comes over and he sprints over through the fatal frontal and comes around, and he grabs me and he's like, sir. And I just remember his face went like this blood. And I was just like, and thank God that he didn't lose his jaw, because he said afterwards, he's like, I didn't know if I had a jaw or not, because he took a piece of shrapnel from the grenade that got me, and it hit him right in the cheek, like a quarter-sized piece went right through. And he thought his face was gone because he couldn't feel anything. And he said, when I saw your reaction, I thought my jaw was gone. And then he's like, do I have my jaw? And I just was like staring at him. And then he goes, do I have my jaw? And then I remember it was just everything went, and then it was back. And I just went, yes. And he goes, thank God. And so we just literally kind of looked at each other, got on the radio, called up my platoon sergeant, and then we just got back in the fight. It was pretty tough because Lance Corporal Adelsberger had passed away, but we needed to obviously retrieve him. And so we went in, retrieved him. And I'll never forget, because I was taking a knee outside the gate right there. And the 4 Marines that ran in to get him, one of them is no longer here, Benson, bless his soul. They pick him up by his feet, right? And then underneath his armpits. And I don't feel bad telling the story because, it needs to be told. It's part of my story. But I was like at eye level taking a knee and looking at my gator and my map, because I was going to level the whole block. And so, but he right when he comes around the corner, I look up and he was gone. He was gone. But I made eye contact with him. We connected, and it was like, I don't remember what he was trying to convey. And I've had so many times where he's visited me at night and tried to convey this message. I don't know what it was, but I do remember after he passed by, I thought to myself, well, you're never going to get rid of that image, right? Because it was clear that he was gone. His face was completely white, purple lips. He was blood. It was just, he was gone. But it's almost as if I connected with him briefly as he was just getting onto the other side. And so that happened. And Doc Rod, he, bless his soul, he tried doing some CPR on him for 20 minutes on the ride there, but it didn't work. And so a few of the other guys got pretty messed up, and I pulled people back out, and I was like, screw that. So I just set up a cordon across the street, went up onto a house, and I literally dropped about, 2,500 pound bombs on the entire block, and just freaking literally was like, you would give a correction for close air support, which with a JDAM, and usually very small increments, and it's got to be on a map. So you'd go northwest 15, and that would basically mean you just go 15 meters to the northwest of that building, and then the pilots will see the GRG, the grid reference something graphic. And it's very efficient, right? And so I just went up on a rooftop, and it was insane because after every, it's like it gets really quiet, and it's quiet for a second, and there's a nanosecond where the whole building blows up before it hits you. And I mean, I'm talking cinder blocks like this thing, which is 25 years old. This was in the Battle of Fallujah, and it's
Wow.
down because it's going, and so I'm calling them, watching, and then doing this. Me and Marty, my RO, who was a Lance Corporal, my battalion commander actually came up. He pulled his freaking truck up and ran up to the top, and he was like, hey, Michael, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm leveling the block, sir. Spurge died. And he was like, carry on. It was very much like a garrison exchange, but in the heat of combat. There's gunfights going on in an adjacent unit 100 meters away. There's a gunfight 100 meters in the other direction. Artillery's in the air. You have, all sorts of planes, and everyone wanted to play ball. So that was
Can I
interesting.
ask you just a simple strategy question? So we have all this firepower. Well, you have all this firepower. Why did they put boots on the ground when they could just use we have so many bombs. How come they couldn't just clear it all with bombs and then let you guys come in and clean up the rubble rather than putting you in somebody's house? What's the purpose of that?
You can't, you can't own a territory and objective unless you do put boots technically on the ground. So you can't claim it unless you got the boots there. And we could do that. However, there's still civilians in there. And as much as I would love to just say, drop a big one, right? Like, one of the reasons we were there was to stand up for the people that couldn't stand up for themselves. And so I
I
saw
see.
there were what's called torture rooms in a lot of these headquarters. So we would find families that either had been tortured and destroyed, or we had some that were still alive. We found a lot of mentally handicapped kids locked up, and like they were like left and like, in the house, like one of them was in like a cage, and he was, very much not, he was Down syndrome for sure. But as much as I would have loved to have been like, yes, we could have saved all of my buddies' lives by just freaking nuking it, it's like, from the moral and the ethical standpoint, that would have not been the right course of action. So,
So you guys did that mostly to avoid collateral damage of innocent people.
I mean, yeah, you could say that. I'm not going to pretend like we weren't damn near freaking indiscriminate with our fires, because if I wanted something blown up for about 5 days, I think President Bush lifted the rules of engagement, which essentially means like, hey, you're not going to have Amnesty International or the lawyers up your booty if you kill some people, right? So a lot of times like a police officer, you can be investigated and all sorts of stuff. And if there's a killing or something, that will happen, much less so when you're at war and the ROEs have been lifted. And they're literally like, any military age male in the city of Fallujah is considered hostile from the moment we went in. So there was a little while, I'm not going to say we shot people. We just shot them. Yeah. So like, if they were out in the street, that's freaking, what would you be doing as a military age male in the street during the Fallujah, like only to
Right.
fight? So yeah.
Right.
But it was December 14th, 2004, the Battle of Fallujah. We were on the northern portion of the city, and we were in a house trying to get one of my Marines who was killed in action, Corporal Mike Anderson. And so we were deep in this room. There was 5 dudes that were in there. What happened was one of my units was making entry into a house. They got deep enough. One of my Marines was killed, and they grabbed him and pulled him into the house. And I was 2 houses down, and I heard you can tell the difference by then of an AK coming at you versus an AK going away. And we had Iraqi forces with us, so they were shooting AKs, and they would, so we knew, but I knew that this was not good. And then I heard contact, wait over, which is, we just made contact, wait, and I'll get back to you. And so when you hear that, you immediately start, getting the crew to go support that unit that's in, contact with the enemy. So as I'm clearing, I don't want to just run over there, but I was clearing the house with the squad that I was with at the time. However, bless his heart, my company commander and his first sergeant and the gunny, they go vroom, and they like fly by us. And, we're talking in the city in an area that hasn't been cleared. And I don't know why, because it wasn't in concert with like, they went to go get Mike. But the issue is that our company commander got trapped inside of the house with the dead Marine. So now our company commander's not available to help do what company commanders do. And now this lieutenant is now on a mission to retrieve my fallen Marine, not just my fallen Marine, but also my company commander, who, by the time we got there, which was only like a minute, right? My first sergeant grabbed me outside and he said, "Sir, I think Captain McNulty is dead." And I was like, I didn't expect. So for 40 minutes during this battle, he said, "You're now in charge of the company." I think that's what essentially like, I'm in charge. So now I go from this lieutenant who has this one very particular, complex problem to solve. Now it's made and exponentially larger, because now I have to coordinate cross, fires and things like this. So my focus was taken off of exactly what I was supposed to do there. Well, after several back and forth for probably 40 minutes inside this house, like I'm in the room, it's a kitchen, and I'm with Sergeant Hannah, and there was another Marine behind me. I don't remember, but we were in a stack, and we were throwing grenades back and forth, because these rooms are only about 8 feet by 8 feet. And so we're shooting around these corners, and they have 5 guys in there. That's what we counted when we left. And what would happen is we kept shooting. and they were freaking going back and rotating and then shooting themselves full of lidocaine. They had a corpsman in the back of the house with a whole medical kit and everything, with like a wall and all that. So as these dudes would get shot, they would go back there and slam themselves with a bunch of nerve deadening agents and then come back out. And that's why I remember I was in the room and I was like, why aren't these guys dying? And we were trying, and then at this one point in time, I see a muzzle come past the door and then it disappears real quick. And I was like, that's not good, although that could be great. So I was prepared to grab it, but then all of a sudden he just pulls back and it like bounces off one wall, bounces off another wall, and then bounces off another wall. And I jump up and I'm like, it's a kitchen, but it's really small. And there was a bowl, probably the size of the top of this thing right here. And it was right underneath my head. And I mean, it's burned in my mind, one of the tracer rounds, because every fifth round in most ammunition is got some form of a green or a blue, flare to it, or not blue, green or red ignition or something. You can see it. It's a tracer. And it lands so perfectly in this bowl that like right underneath my face, as like all these bullets are flying around, it goes, and it just is like a bullet that's just been fired lands perfectly in this bowl. And I remember, and it was just so freaking unreal, like right there in front of my face, and everything again becomes, the audible exclusions, the visionary stuff, all that things. One of my Marines, Lance Corporal Rouse, was hit by a grenade, hit him in the chest. He fell back and it like landed in between his legs, and he kicked it. And thank God it didn't blow up in between his legs. But then what happened is I remember seeing that muzzle, because we turned back around. I put my hand on Sergeant Hannah, put my freaking weapon right on his shoulder, and we're waiting because I was in a stack. And then I just thought to myself, if I see that muzzle one more time, I'm going to grab it. So I was like going to grab his muzzle, and I had my K-bar, and I started to undo my I was down here, and I had my K-bar, and I was going to undo it and pull him and stab him in the neck. But one of my Marines, Corporal Case, was like, screw this shit. And he went out. He was the other last guy. And he went onto the outside, went back in the house, and he sat, and what he did is he got a different angle. And then we did these things called Pat Rogers drills. He's an old Marine, retired New York City cop. He came and trained us in a bunch of basically like how to shoot underneath a car, right? And so like he just got on his side, pap, pap. And I just remember hearing the like, and that was it. And so we got rid of the last fighter, and we were able to retrieve Corporal Anderson, and the company commander was not well. He hadn't been shot, but he was stuck in a bathroom, like, cause they have just holes in the ground in the houses where you just stand and pee. And it's just like a little nook, but he was like up in it, like holding this dead Marine for 40 minutes. Like, you can't come out of that unscathed. While you should see the pictures of the wall in front of him. The whole wall is like destroyed. And we're talking, it's concrete, and it's just got 500 bullets in it. So he just sat there like with his knees up like this while rounds, like, because they're basically saying, you move, you die. Right. So then that's why I was like, we got to get this guy out. Thank God we had an interesting conversation when he came out, because he was fully, it was, what's it called when you have smoke inhalation? Because we made I'm not going to say we made napalm, but, so we had some homemade stuff, and there was also lots of things that we employed to throw, because to get them out of the room, we needed them to be lit on fire. And so we would make basically sticky bombs, throw them in the rooms, and then when they would explode, it would stick to them, and then they would run out, and then that's when we would shoot them. So, and that was authorized by law at the time. So I don't think you can just do that today, but in war, however, it's definitely served a purpose, and it worked. So that's why I started, because I remember thinking, when I'm literally thinking about grabbing this dude's muzzle, the scene from Saving Private Ryan came into my head, where that dude's like, no, and that German's on top of him, and it's like, and he just goes and kills him, right? And with a knife. And that in that moment, I thought of that scene, and I was like, there's no way that's happening to me. And then we made it out of the battle. Then when I got home, I remembered the battle, and I called my buddy Fredo Romero, who was a wrestler. And when I met him at officer candidate school, we had some free time in the back of the squad bay. I thought I was a cool, tough, punchy, kicky guy. And he took me down, tied me into a pretzel, and then choked me unconscious. And I was like, what was that? And he was like, that's jiu-jitsu, bro. So I called him when I got back from that first deployment, and I said, hey, man, can we get myself into a school? And we literally, it was like the yellow pages. We had the yellow pages back then. And we went through the yellow pages and found a school for me. That was a jiu-jitsu school. And that was my bona fide, like, first time in jiu-jitsu. So came straight from the Battle of Fallujah.
Did you find, I'm sorry, I just one more quick. Did you find that jujitsu was a little bit of therapy?
Yeah, jiu-jitsu saves lives. What it does is it takes out all that crazy noise. You can't be thinking about the Battle of Fallujah when Frank is trying to turn off the blood flow that goes from the bottom of my clavicle to or from the top of my clavicle to the bottom of my earlobe. Or, I got freaking anybody trying to wrist lock me. Anything is what I'm kind of like. You leave yourself, you become more mindful. You also have endorphins, and say Jason and I are rolling, we're going to have some oxytocin that's going to be shared. That TPS report from my boss last night, doesn't, or the disagreement I had with my wife, that ain't on my mind. What's on my mind is jiu-jitsu, and it helps declutter, get rid of everything else, because now you're forced into this. It's a reason that Gracie's picked Torrance, California for where they moved. It's because of the waves. The waves to them, that was their mindfulness, right? So that's why surfing and jiu-jitsu are so together, is because when you're paddling out, it's you, yourself, and the world, the environment. There might be others out there doing their thing. You say, what's up? But when you drop in on a wave, man, all you got is you got your kit, which in your feet on the board, the breath and the air in your lungs, right? And if you go under, that's like you getting submitted. So you only have X amount of time until you can get back up. And if not, you're tapping, right? So that's why.
Michael, we actually have a podcast about that from Naya, right, Jason?
Yeah, my daughter's, Mike and I have actually talked about that. My daughter actually lives in Melbourne. So yeah, where Mike's from. I told her about it, so he's gonna visit her at some point.
Got it. And I love kava. So if she's interested in grabbing kava, that's kind of my thing now. So since I realized that booze is no good for me, 10 years, no alcohol. So that's a cool thing. I drink a little kava. So it's a root from Indonesia. And
Yeah.
Have you ever had it?
No, I haven't, but I remember you telling me about that in the pre-interview. So, all right, can we switch gears a little bit
Sure.
to jiu-jitsu and like the mindset there? Because it's interesting, because I do know some other Marines. I have some Marines that do jiu-jitsu with me now. I have a good friend that I've known for like 30 years that was in the Marines, and he was actually in battle as well in Iraq. So he started fighting MMA. When he got out of the Marines, he started fighting MMA. So he did jujitsu and striking. And I remember him telling me that somebody said, how do you have the courage to like get in there in the cage with one other person and the door closes and it's just you and him? And he was like, man, I've been in battle. This is nothing, So I think it's great, like that story right there, and then your story of the mental toughness that you created through being in the Marine Corps is such an easy transition into jiu-jitsu, because you already aren't that white belt coming onto the mats. If you've been in the Marine Corps and then you come onto the mats and you're a white belt, you're not that spazzy white belt that starts like going crazy and forcing things, because you're able to keep your composure, right? Because to you've been in battle. So you're like, this little grappling match is nothing. Right?
It's probably like for you playing paintball. You're not going to be scared playing paintball, right?
Yeah,
Right.
paintball's not my thing, because you think about it, the odds aren't the same, or the consequences aren't the same. So I actually did go play paintball with my buddy once, and he killed me fast, because I was like, well, you just ran out. I was trying to do something like, if there were real bullets, but he was just so, paintball's cool, and I would love to do more of that. But to Jason's point, the interesting thing about why veterans also do jiu-jitsu is because it's the closest thing to combat that you can really get here in America without actually committing a crime or going back to combat, because you're posing your human will against somebody else's. And a lot of times when people start to get, I don't know, dominated, their claustrophobia kicks in. Echo Charles talked about this in his on the Jocko podcast a long time ago. I thought it was really cool of him. A lot of people have more claustrophobia than they realize. And when you're in north-south, stuck on the bottom of some heavyweight, and you've tried everything to get out, and you realize, I can't get out. This is like I'm trapped. Then you have all these flood of emotions that come back, and a lot of them have a lot to do with kind of that helpless feeling. And so that's why I encourage people to do jujitsu, but do it intentionally, and know that if you do have stress or any trauma, that you don't want to just willy-nilly put yourself in a place where you're not going to understand what's going on and then be able to comprehend it afterwards and learn from it. Is have an intention when you go in there and understand that if you will get destroyed. This is going to happen, accept it, right? Like, and hopefully you have training partners that put you in very sticky situations and bad predicaments that will loosen up just a little bit. You know, that guy's neon belly, he gives you a little bit of grace when you're like, and you try and get it off, and then he loosens up a little bit, and you're like, thanks, man. You know, that kind of stuff, like taking care of people. And so
So all that training, Mike, in the Marine Corps, and then like you were involved in jujitsu for like 20 years, and you kind of traveled around a lot, and then that's what kind of gave you the idea for this mobile jujitsu app that you came out with, right?
correct. That is correct. I got a different, each belt was at a different location in the military and jujitsu space. So blue belt, purple, black, brown, and black. And growing up in the military, or excuse me, in jujitsu, everyone you both know, a few dudes that listen to Jocko, they listen to Joe Rogan, they would love to train jujitsu. They just don't want to get bodied by some 19-year-old in between wrestling seasons. They literally can't make it because they work from 6:30 to 6:30, and driving 20 minutes in the other direction from home to go wrestle sweaty men in pajamas isn't going to fly with the wife who's on her 14th hour with the 3 kids under 5, right? So it's like, for a premium, I'll come to your house and teach you jujitsu. You're not going to get hurt. You're not going to get ringworm, and you'll be able to have a beer within 5 minutes or 5 seconds of me leaving, right? And it just took off. The idea, it's nothing. I want to be like, I'm a pioneer, I'm a visionary. I just monetized privates, right? Like that's kind of what I put like an extra business model onto privates, because privates have been around forever. I just saw that there was a gap, and I injected myself in there. Mobile jujitsu clicks with people. I mean, and the cool part is there's an entire demographic of men that want to train jujitsu, but they also don't want to look like Nick, the new guy. They don't want to be embarrassed because their ego, they're account executives, right? They're directors of finance, and no offense to my client who's a director of finance, but he, like literally, these guys want to learn jujitsu. They don't want to go through the rigmarole of looking like an idiot. So
Yeah.
Mike, I want to say, and I can't. He's a famous jujitsu YouTuber. Like really, people love him. His name is not popping into my mind, but he had a video that said, "Hey, you're older, you want to get into jujitsu, but you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to do the." He said the best thing you could do is take a private lesson, because I know it sounds weird, like, oh, I don't want to get a black belt, but he's like, black belt will take total care of you. You will not get hurt. You'll get a good sweat. You'll get some good technique. My question to you is, how do you do that at somebody's house? Do you have like portable mats that you bring?
I do. So during COVID, I just bought some mats from AK Athletic Equipment, 2 4x8s, and I just throw them in the back of my Tundra. I have tape, wrestling tape. I got like 10 rolls of them. And all I do is I just pull up, and I also have a hardware tub full of tie pads, boxing gloves ×2, focus mitts, and all the Lysol wipes you can handle because we are super clean. And I literally I always show up in my gi. I'm very clean. I always smell nice. My breath, I make sure that my breath is not offensive, because there's no better way to not get invited back to teach somebody jujitsu if their breath smells like ass. So I make sure that I'm very nice and clean and smell and I'm polite. I make very concerted effort to smile and to recognize that I'm going to people's homes, right? So that if there's a tinge of dick or anything from me, it's like, launch that guy. So I'm very much not like I'm acting or anything, but I'm minding my P's and Q's because it's my profession and I want to give off the best impression to these people. So they invite me back. And so far, so good. I literally pull up on my truck, boop, and I hit the button. I grab both of them. I walk up, put them on the front doorstep. And then I go back and I grab my geek kit, walk in, I ring the doorbell. Some of the families like me to just set up in the garage 5 minutes and then they'll come out. And so sometimes I've been able to one family I have is like, hey, just walk in, don't ring the doorbell. And I'm like, all right, So, but when you've been training them at their house for a year and a half every week, you're not like sensei or professor at school. They're like every single week I get cards from clients' children that they're making me. And so, because they see me wrestling mommy and daddy while they're playing off to the side or in their room, and I'm able to make relationship with them as well. And originally what I also did was train homeschool kids because I just started out with dads. I didn't want to train women because I thought training women at their house alone, no-gi, was kind of weird. So didn't want to give that impression off. So I just said men only. Eventually, I figured, hey, why not try homeschools out? Step Up for Students is a homeschool program here in Florida, and they have grants. So each student gets a lot of money. And so I just signed up as a jiu-jitsu professional and a mobile jiu-jitsu instructor with Step Up. And so now I have several homeschool families that pay me, I'm going to say handsomely, to come teach their kids jiu-jitsu. And one of the best things to come out of it is I've had several nonverbal children on the spectrum that have been my clients. And twice I got one of them who is bona fide nonverbal to speak while in a jiu-jitsu session. She said, Ibra, she went, when we got up and we bowed, it was like her 20th lesson, and she went, bow, like that. And we got it on camera. And then the second time she said down dog when we were doing down dog. And like her dad was like almost, like it was. So that's why I'm so hard up on jiu-jitsu. I'm like, yo, it will save your life. If you're like, if NA didn't work, if AA didn't work, if church didn't work, if ayahuasca didn't work, go to jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
Wow.
Mike, can you walk us through our listeners through a customer experience? Like, let's say that Frank was looking to do this. What would Frank see? How would you attract Frank as a client? And then what would be his experience when he finds you and you make the connection?
Awesome. Usually people see me on Instagram at Space Coast Mobile Jiu-Jitsu. And I got a pretty decent following there, a lot of engagement. I just encourage them to either DM me or I put my phone number out there and I just say, hit me up. The 3 ways I get it are either through SEO on my website, or I'll have it through Instagram, or the biggest one, word of mouth. By far the best, especially locally around here. So essentially he'd reach out. I used to do first lesson free. I don't anymore, mainly because I have such an established client list that I don't need that. I need, I'd like some. However, if somebody's like, I really like to taste it, or not taste, like to taste like jiu-jitsu, what it's about before I start paying, I'll give them a free lesson. And essentially what I do is I go over and I have the intention is to, 1, have them book me again, 2, have them go to a jiu-jitsu school and sign up, or 3, walk away with something of value so that if they do get in a confrontation with their family around, they're going to be able to protect them. So I teach them what's called the don't get slept in front of your family starter pack. And essentially it's just, you're walking along with the fam bam, you're at the fair, something like that. Some drunk guy freaking shoulders you. And we go through a series of what ifs. And the biggest one is the overhand right. And we talk about distance, clinching, takedown. And what I do is I teach them in their very first lesson, like I'll incorporate the back break falls, I'll incorporate shrimping and stuff like that. But I'm not getting people in lines and having them be like, do this. It's usually, hey, when we get to this place, this is the movement that you want to do. And that's like why I always, probably up until about 3 stripes, I just tell my students, my clients, focus on the concepts, focus on getting where you're supposed to be, because to learn how to finish an Americana takes 1 minute. To learn how to get to the position where you apply an Americana might take a year, right? So that's the philosophy for me going into that first lesson. And then usually I'll just offer them a package at the end and a discount, about $200 a session. And I'm all over the Space Coast and Treasure Coast. I've traveled, but what I'd really like to also get into is some corporate self-defense, because they pay a lot, but that's really not where my heart is. My heart's in Grapple App. I want to help spread jiu-jitsu through the world. Grappling is the love language of the world, in my opinion. It saves so many people's lives. I get texts all the time. Dude, thank you. Thank you for constantly encouraging people to go to jiu-jitsu. The reels where I just get online and I say, hey, if you're having a hard time, go to jiu-jitsu. Like, even if 5,000 people see it, one of them is probably going to go. So I look at it like almost with every reel, I'm usually getting 1 or 2 people that wouldn't have trained jiu-jitsu to actually go. So that's why it's another big time motivating factor. I get a lot of, and older crowd, older dudes. So it's nice to hear from them being like, I never thought that I would be able to do this. And I'm like, you can.
So,
Yeah.
Mike, do most of your clients stay with you in the privates, or do some of them actually join the jiu-jitsu gym?
I encourage them to join a jiu-jitsu gym because of the camaraderie that they have there. And usually 1 lesson with me pays for a month at a gym. So it's really no skin off my back, because I'm help contributing to the local jiu-jitsu community. And I'm also have the capability of backfilling that hour with another client if I need to, or
Right.
working on Grapple App, or the mastermind.
Now, is that the revenue sharing platform you're talking about?
So Grapple Pass is in Grapple App, yes. So this is where the messaging aspect of what Michael Cragholm is up to. It's like, whoa, dude, you got a ton of things. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us how that works. Tell us how the revenue sharing platform works.
You got it. I own Grapple App, which we have, our hook is an open mat finder. I call it the world's largest, even though it's not, but it's the world's most accurate. I keep trying to change the name on my website, or the word, but not a big deal. I think as far as accuracy goes, we are, because there are so many aggregators out there that open mat finders, all they want is your, email. That's what they want. They get 30 cents per, and so there's there wasn't anything good out there. So an open mat finder was nothing new. However, in days of where everybody scrapes everything and everybody uses AI for everything, my wife and I and my partner Eric were like, why don't we just hand jam 5,000 of these things in here and make sure that it's the most accurate, so that the feedback that we get from damn near everybody is, hey man, I went to a local place, traveled, I looked up, sure enough, you guys had that Asheville, North Carolina, and we had the gyms there, and it was accurate. And I got people to an actual open mat like when they wanted to. So I decided, all right, how can I continue to help the gym owners with more than just like me talking about them? Well, my partner was like, he sent me a slideshow, a slide deck, and he was like, yo, rev share, baby. And I was like, oh, it was right there. And that's why my partner, Eric, he's a senior engineering manager at a huge company in Texas. He's 54, he's a purple belt. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. And essentially he was like, let's create a revenue sharing platform for brick and mortar gym owners, so that we can give back to the whole community, not just mobile jiu-jitsu guys, because there's only like 30 of them. So essentially we leveraged our open mat finder. And that's the reason why it has to be so accurate, is so that when gyms go in there, they create a profile. Like I had a gym tonight just sign up. And once they create their instructor profile or their gym profile, they literally just go to claim their gym in our open mat finder, boop. And then I get a notification on my phone. I make sure everything looks good and I approve it. Then from there, all it's a QR code. They can put it on their wall or not, because whenever a student that actually holds a Grapple Pass comes and trains, they can geofence or like just tap in to go, there's another, they can tap to get, to go to their class. What that means is we have eliminated basically all of the headaches that are going with this cross-training culture of open mats, right? So instead of, is it for free or is it $20? Is it for free? Is it friendly? Do I have to sign a waiver? We just pierced right through the freaking heart of it, and we just took care of all of that. And the cool part is, for anybody that holds a grapple pass, we sell 3 of them. One's $5.99. It's called the Explorer. That gets you 4 open mats per month. The next one's $10.99, and that's called the Nomad, and that one gets you 8. And then for less than $20 at $19.99, you get unlimited cross training with any grapple pass approved gym in Grapple app. So those prices aren't going to stay for a while because we can't keep them that way. But on the first of every month, I take 40% of all revenue produced through the increased culture of cross training, and I distribute it not evenly, but proportionally based off of the volume of schools that are participating in the Grapple Pass. So really excited. It'll start out slow, but it's free. There's no down. And essentially, it eliminates a ton of headaches and helps promote that person, because now if a gym is in my app and they're specifically signed up for Grapple app, they got one of the loudest dudes on the internet in the jiu-jitsu community in their pocket being like, Gracie Tampa, like that's a big plus that comes from it, because I don't know, I like making people smile, and money and jiu-jitsu, 2 things make people smile.
Wow. This is packed with excitement, huh, Frank? I mean, we went from like talking to his
Wow.
stories of war, and then into this is like, I feel like we could be sitting here talking for the next couple hours here.
We absolutely could. We absolutely could. This is like got a lot of
Yeah.
notes here,
So
a lot of
we'll have to
wisdom,
have him
a lot
on
of
the show
stories.
again so we
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
so we can like really talk more about it. So, but unfortunately, time is coming up, but we are going to get our favorite part of the show right here.
Not quite yet. Not quite
Before we
yet.
even do that, Frank is wearing a wonderful gi today. So if you are only a listener, you can't see that he's wearing it. But if you're a YouTuber and you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that Frank is he's looking really sharp.
Well,
Frank,
thank
you're
you.
looking sharp.
Yes, 9 Lives Jiu-Jitsu is a site that our listeners, first of all, one of our sponsors. We really appreciate you, 9 Lives Jiu-Jitsu. They make amazing gear for Jiu-Jitsu, and I am actually now an official model of their gi. Now, check this out. This is their black gi right here. It's beautiful. It's jet black, sleek, ninja-like. It's got embroiders. This is not a patch. It's actually embroidered. The beautiful golden letters, 9 Lives, are embroidered right on the shoulder. It's got pop. It's soft, so it won't hurt, but you can actually feel its relief. You've got beautiful, bold, simple, clean artwork here. It fits good. It feels good. I mean, it's easy to move in. It's a premium product at a very reasonable price. And I cannot wait to walk onto the mats, look Big Juan in the eyes, and say, I got 9 lives and I'm not spending one on you. So we're gonna definitely give you the link. Please check out our sponsor. We so appreciate you, 9 Lives. Great company, great people there, Colorado. And now it is
What time is it, Frank?
it's that special time. It's tap out time, where we share with you, we distill some of the wisdom and some of the greatness that has been shared with us from our guest, Michael, who is a veritable hero, a veteran who has served our country in major battle. I cannot say how much we appreciate all that you and your peers, your Lance Corporal Christopher, Mike Anderson, I can't remember all their names. I wrote down as many as I could. God bless them, their families, for the ultimate sacrifice. God bless you for putting yourself right in harm's way, bullets flying. You're a savage and you're a hero. So we really appreciate you. Some of the things that I'd like to mention that you talked about, the biggest thing, I'm going to start with the biggest thing. It's that you said BJJ saves lives. You said that after all you've been through, all the trauma that you've been through, all the nastiness that you've seen. When you get on the mats, you can't be thinking of X, whatever X is, your battles. For somebody else, it's alcohol. For somebody else, it's a divorce. For somebody else, it's a boss who's being a jerk. You can't think of those things when somebody's trying to Kimura you. You can't. When somebody's trying to triangle you, the only thing you're thinking of is, can I get my posture before he pulls my head down? That's all. That's your whole world. And so many people so many of our guests who have come on the show have been through very hard times, and they all echo the exact same sentiment. BJJ is therapy that's absolutely fun,
Yes.
right? It's therapy that's fun. You also said something that really caught my ear. You said BJJ is the closest thing that you can get to real combat without, for the most part, without getting hurt, right? If you have good partners, without really getting hurt. And one of our previous guests said she loved jujitsu because it's controlled violence.
Correct.
And I thought that was a really beautiful phrase, and I think you echoed the same sentiment about
Yes.
that. You mentioned to us that it's important to find the right partner to train with and taking care of your partner. I think that can never be said enough, especially to the younger wrestlers. Remember that not everybody's a wrestler, and that we
Totally.
have to take care of one
Totally.
another. There's age, there's weight differences, and there's also different goals. Jason always talks about this. I love when you talk about this. Every person at your gym has a different goal. Get to know your partner, get to know what their goal is, and work with them on their goal. If you want to
That's
go savage, you can find a savage. You can go savage, but when you're not with one, take care of your partner, right?
legit. Yeah, that's good.
Also, I like that you talked about entrepreneurship because I'm an entrepreneurship teacher. And I love that you said it so perfectly. I found a gap in the market. Yeah, there's a market for jujitsu, but there's a lot of people that are just too intimidated to go in, or a lot of people that don't have the time to go in. And you saw a gap in the market. You identified a possibility, and then you jumped into that gap and you made it your own business. You're doing well. I'm so happy for you. You deserve to do well. And
Thank
I'm
you.
glad that you are. And I like that you're just shouting out to entrepreneurs. Find that opportunity, jump in. You use three simple things: Insta, SEO, website, and word of mouth. It's not that hard. Three basics: fundamental wins fights, fundamentals win business. I love that you laid that out very clearly
And
for
bad.
us.
Yep, because you always fall back on your most basic training. That's one of the biggest
100.
things we came out from the Battle of Fallujah. It's not this highfalutin, super cool SEAL stuff. It's your most basic training. And also, one of the reasons why you're so focused to answer this is because of the guy on your right and your left. The bond amongst Marines in that position, you don't want to let them down. That is largely the biggest wind beneath everyone's sails. It's not fear and it's not courage. It's literally the brothers to your left and your right. And that's what pushes Marines forward.
That community, and the Marines are known for that. You also called jujitsu the love language, and I thought that was amazing because we've talked to so many successful people who have found a community, either a community of moral support, a community of mental health support, or a community of building your business support. It really is. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it is one of the best love languages, right?
100%.
So I never heard anybody describe it that way, and I like that. I want our listeners to walk to take that from us. And I really like at the very end, you're like, yo, buddy, what's life about but jujitsu and money? That was a nice way to just wrap it up. And I love that you are making money doing something that you really enjoy, have a passion for. You're sharing your art with people who otherwise would not have had that art. And I knew you were in it for the right reason when you're like, no, 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 Frank, I hope they go to a jujitsu gym because for the $200, they can afford the gym. It's only one lesson with me, and I'll fill that gap with somebody else and I'll get them into this. You're trying to make yourself obsolete and then fill somebody else in that position. You've got a good heart, and that's why you have earned the Purple Heart.
Thank
So,
you, sir.
a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure. I've had a tremendous time, and yeah, thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up, and that's largely why I created the Jiu-Jitsu Entrepreneurs Mastermind, because there are so many similarities between getting on the mat for the first time and starting a business. It requires courage, resilience, humility, so many things, stick-to-itiveness, honor,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Discipline, everything.
Yeah.
It's a way for people to kind of get a backstage pass to all things Michael Cragholm. And if they're interested in starting or launching a business, that's what I help them with.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Awesome.
And you know that this guy is not figuratively, but literally battle tested. So
Oh,
you want him on your team, definitely. So to you, thank you once again. We really appreciate you. And to our listeners, we love you guys. You're the ones who make this all possible. So check out all the things that Michael is offering. Please check out Nine Lives and drop some hearts for us and share us with your friends.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody.